After you have introduced Tyree Guyton and you've introduced the big orange splot, the next step you want to do is have them draw out some ideas on what they think their dream house could be. Now, their dream house, they have to think about it as something very uh, doable and simplified. So you have to teach them to simplify their answers when they do this. Um, so for example, on mine, I would love for my dream house to be a camera, right? And maybe notice how I did it really simple. I'm doing just a box and I've got a little window right here for my viewfinder. I've got my shutter up top here. Up here, I might put maybe a pool. Like I think that would be really cool if I could have a pool and then a diving board right there. Okay, this might be where my door is. I would have that open, and I maybe would have another door right here. It's a very simple idea. They're going to vary a lot after this, and that's okay. They're going to learn to work with the material and to adjust their project as they go along, and that's a really good skill for them to learn. Sometimes students will get so caught up in making it look exactly like their drawing that they become frustrated with this project. So you have to really teach them how to loosen up. So with this, I suggest you go have them design a very simple box-like structure to get them started on their quote dream house. And then what I do is I open myself up as like the contractor or the construction employee, and I actually produce the materials for them as they need for their project. So, what every student gets in my classroom is a ruler and a pencil, and then I give them scrap pieces of cardboard, or if this is this mat board, which I get free deliveries from, or free from framing shops, just the scraps from all the different mat boards that they've done. Another thing that works really well is foam core. Foam core is really nice because it can work through your slicer as well. And so does this mat board. It works really well. But obviously no kids are going to be allowed to work through the slicer, so you have to be the contractor. It was a lot of fun to have kids come up to my slicer and I would work on cutting it for them. So let me teach you how to use this. Okay. So you're going to want one of these in your classroom. I guarantee it, even if it's a smaller version. One piece of advice when you're working with one of these is always push your paper all the way up to the top. And it's really nice. There's actually a ruler right there for you. Okay, so I use that to measure a lot of the time. But when it comes to this project, I like the kids to kind of measure out what they need. So I have this piece of paper and I tell them, all you have to do is come up to me and show me where you want the cut, and I will cut it for you. So for the bottom of my box, I would want a student to draw a straight line as best as they can, like this. And then they come up to me, and then what they do is they show me what they want to keep and what they don't want to keep. Okay? So then I just come over and I slice it right on the line. And then I make it really dramatic and I'm like, here you are, ma'am, or here you are, sir. That's your piece. And then they take it back to their space to be able to construct with it. So that's some of the process. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start to cut all my pieces so I can get ready for my design. Mine is a simple box. This is really good for geometry. This is really good if I want to get two of the exact same size. It's really simple. You just stack one on top of the other. This can be the top and bottom of my house. Cool. I've got the top and bottom. I'm going to need a back as well. That seems to work. And I'm going to need a front. So basically I'm going to need 4 of exactly the same size right here. Now your cuts aren't going to be perfect, but this is a lot of the fun process I like with the students. So I've got my 4 pieces. That are going to be built like this. And then I need to get 2 pieces on the side. Okay, so my side pieces going to be about the same size, and they're going to be square shaped. So I just need to cut this in half. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to be ready to go ahead and take this back to teach you a little bit about construction. So now that you have all your pieces, you can pre-cut these as much as you want to with the kids. And foam core, I think, will work really nicely too. Especially if you have a smaller amount of kids, you can afford foam core. Foam core you can get at the dollar store for a big sheet for only $1. And you can just buy a couple of those to get you started. All right, let's go and start to construct. Okay, so I'm back at my construction site. I've taken my supplies back to where I'm going to work. The one thing you want to do is give every single kid in the whole class the exact same size plot of land. They can use either side if they want to. Okay, so that everybody has their same plot of land, and it is their job to design their house within here. And the whole idea is that later you're going to be able to set some tables up and be able to have an art show where people can walk through and look through all the houses. You could even start to create even other sculptural elements that would belong on your street access or whatever it is. So you are going to be able to display this as a total community with everybody's individuality. They love this project. I'm going to use the white side as my plain side. And don't worry about any kind of stains that you see on these. They don't have to be perfect because we're going to be painting on them later. Okay, so the things that you need to be able to make the construction of this is your design, and you need your pieces that you cut out, you need the base, Elmer's glue, and masking tape. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my base, and you're going to use both Elmer's glue and masking tape. And what you do, the masking tape is only a temporary hold. It just holds the items in place so that after the glue dries, then you take it off and everything is stable. So I teach the students that in order to build, they need to have 2 pieces together. Ideally, have white on the outside as much as possible because it's a lot easier to paint on white than it is on green. So I'm going to have white on the outside here. So I've got 2 pieces. And another good thing that this teaches you is how to use your friends to help you with your project. I teach this idea of community with this, that we help each other reach our goals. And so I would need somebody else over here holding it up. And I really stress this. And the kids have so much fun playing that role. Do you want to be a community builder? Do you want to help your friends? So the next step is everywhere that cardboard touches must have glue. Everywhere that cardboard touches must have glue. And guess what? I'm the kind of teacher who says it's totally okay to have a lot of glue. I know that every kindergarten teacher teaches differently because they only want you to have a little dot of glue, but for this project, a lot of glue is fun, and it's perfect for this. So everywhere that cardboard touches must have glue. Everywhere that cardboard touches must have glue. So I've got cardboard touching here. I've got cardboard touching here. Whoops, I did that the wrong way. There we go. Oh, no, that was the right way. This one's the wrong way. Everywhere that cardboard touches must have glue. Now notice Elmer's glue is definitely not going to hold it up right now. I mean, it does a little bit, but not permanently. You don't want to use, what is it called? You don't want to use glue gun because glue gun's really hard to paint on top of. It does not look good. It is much better to use Elmer's glue. All right, so I've got this up. Ideally, I'd have a friend holding this up. Let's pretend this glue bottle is my friend. That's about all the friends I have. And now we have the temporary hold. So think of this as like your scaffolding. If you're going to teach them about construction, teach them about scaffolding. These things hold it up until it's ready to go. So all you're going to do is place a piece of tape on the 2 sides where you want it to hold. after this project dries, we're going to take away all that tape. And it's so much fun because what we do is we do a test where we turn our house upside down and shake it and make sure none of the parts fall off. So I've got this on as a temporary hold. I'm now ready to continue to go around my sculpture and finish this up. Everywhere that cardboard touches must have glue. And you'll learn in the classroom, singing little jingles like that really helps your projects go a long way. Everywhere that cardboard touches must have glue. Are you guys annoyed with me yet? Add a lot of glue. A lot of glue will do. Sing a little jingle. And now I'm going to wipe away any excess glue and tape to hold. Scaffold. I got some glue here. Another trick I'm going to teach you that you're going to love is if you ever get glue on kids' hands and they start going, oh my goodness, what do I do? I've got so much glue on my hands. I get a really excited face and I smile at them and I say, oh, guess what? You're a magician. Abracadabra. And what you do is you have them rub their hands together. Rub together. Abracadabra. Zippity-doo. Look at where my glue went to. All you teach them to do is do abracadabra and their glue will come right off their fingers. They really love that trick. Okay. Last part of the outside here, we are going to be working on the front. Well, that one I cut way too small. Let's do this one. That's ready. Everywhere that cardboard touches must have glue. Everywhere that cardboard touches must have glue. Everywhere that cardboard touches must have glue. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and notice a mistake that I made. I did not need this one on the bottom. I'm going to take that off. I didn't need the one on the bottom. So I'm going to save that one for later. Everywhere that cardboard touches must have glue. Y'all looking at me like this is all messy. This is a work of art, friends. Don't be judging. This is fun. Does anyone else get excited about glue like I do? Am I the only one out there? All right, I'm taping this side. And taping this side. Everywhere that cardboard touches must have glue. And one thing you might want to do is, after the kids all put this together, either have them double check their friends' work, or at the end of the day, when they are done with their project, go around and just make sure that they did put glue everywhere they're supposed to, and that everything is touching. Because, you know, we got kids who think they're doing what they're doing right, but sometimes it's really not. Okay, I think I'm ready for my top. I'm going to use this side just because I ruined the other side. Everywhere that cardboard touches must have glue. Everywhere that cardboard touches must have glue. Aha! Look at that. And remember, for the most part, anywhere that there is Elmer's glue will dry clear. Oh, another thing I like to do is I like to pull off several pieces of tape and just stick them on the side of the table like this, all around the kids' tables, so that all they have to do is grab the tape, because they are incapable of tearing off the tape on their own. Don't even try it. Just go ahead and make them a bunch of little pieces and stick them on the side of their table. All right, so I have my basic shape down. This is what you would probably do on stage 1. You can do the finishing details the next class time. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to let this dry, and we're going to revisit it after it dries. Oh, after it dries, Miss Estabrook. There we go. Doesn't look as pretty as I think it would be. Okay, so I'm back in. This is mostly dried. It's only been, I would say, about 45 minutes since I finished with the last segment of the video. You can see that it's mostly dry. You can still see some wet. If this were in the classroom, you'd probably want to wait a whole day to allow it to dry completely. But for this tutorial, and because we're adults, we can move forward. I did want to make a mention that the foam core is going to be a lot easier for you to cut in the slicer, and for stability reasons. My mat board works just fine. I have a lot of experience with the mat board. But you could combine also using foam core for the structure of it, and then maybe some mat board or something thinner for doing any fine details. And the reason I'm going to say that is because I want to do the front of mine, and I want to do a circular form, and I'm cutting it kind of rough. And the cool thing of is with Tyree Guyton's work, his houses were really rough, and so you get to be able to say that with your students too. Get to say, hey, it does look uneven, but that's kind of cool. So look here, I'm going to put this on the outside of my house, so I can start to take off the tape that's supporting it because it's mostly dry. And I'm going to start gluing on some details here. I'm going to be able to paint this later, so I don't really have to worry about the color. If I like it the way it is, maybe I could leave it alone. This is the front. That could also be my front door. Wouldn't that be cool? And I said I wanted to have a window, which is going to be my viewfinder. And the camera, it's actually on this side. I drew it on the wrong side of my sculpture. In my drawing. Okay, so I'm going to put that there. That looks cute. And I'm going to let that dry. I can even do one more element on the inside of my circle, of my lens, to give it some detail here. That looks really neat. So it's like a double layer. I need to cut it down a little bit more. But you might have to use teacher scissors with this, because this is still thick, and you want it to be thick because it is sculptural. You don't want this to be too flat. You don't want them doing any details right here because they're going to be painting on top of it later. And then on top, remember I said I wanted to have a big shutter right there. So this could be my like outdoor elevator. So maybe it's an elevator to get up and down onto my pool on top here. And maybe I do need a pool on top. So I got myself some paper here, or some mat board here, to create a very own pool. You could put a tennis court up here if you're a tennis player. I think my camera is holding together nicely. There we go. Okay, so I'm done with these details. I'm going to let these completely dry. The reason you really want this to completely dry is because we're going to be painting on top of it. If it's not dry, it will peel off as soon as you add the moisture of the paint. I'm going to finish taking off the rest of these, and remember the test to see if your camera, or your dream house stayed together, is if you hold it upside down. So as you can see, mine is holding together nicely. I have 2 more pieces. I'm going to let this fully dry, and then we're going to paint it. Doesn't that look cute? Okay, now we get to the very easy part of our lesson where we're going to paint this sculpture completely white. This is another option you could do, is to paper mache with white paper towels using flour and water and paper mache, but you will lose some of those details over here. So the idea is to paint it white so that you're giving it a blank canvas for the students to be able to paint on. They're going to get very frustrated if they try to paint yellow on top of this green. Then they're not going to be able to get the color that they want. So it's always important to start with a baseline. Now, if you want to use this should work just fine. Another option that artists use is called gesso. Some people call it gesso. It's Gesso. And that is kind of like a primer. You know how you put primer on your walls? It's the same thing. It primes your sculpture, it primes your painting to get it ready for paint. But I'm being realistic. Most of you will not have any gesso in your classroom, but you will have some white tempera. And I'll go ahead and tell you, in order to do this part of the project, you're going to want to make sure you have plenty of white tempera paint. And the way the texture goes on there is not necessarily a big deal. This should take about an hour to dry completely. You want to make sure that this is dry before students actually paint color on it. So as you can see, I already need my second glob of paint here. If you want it to have the same texture throughout, you'll even have them cover the white. But if you need to be conservative and not have them, like you don't have enough white paint, because we've all been there before, then just tell them just to paint over the colored areas. So that's up to you and how much paint you have. You're going to realize when you start teaching that you're going to be making those choices all the time, depending on what kind of budget you've got. So you want to prepare yourself for that. See, it's looking really good already. As you can see on the sides, I really don't need to add much because it's already white. And then I do have this X over here, which is kind of, if I wanted to paint that a light color, the X would show through. So I'm just pretty much getting everything to the same baseline color. And you're going to also notice if you're painting with tempera, if you try to do any light colors over a dark color, it's not going to work with these school grade temperas. They're not opaque enough, especially the yellow. You're going to learn that the yellow is very, very weak. I also like to paint the bottom here. And then what you're going to let this do is dry for at least an hour. So as you can see, my sculpture is holding together very nicely. I can turn it upside down. I've got all the tape off of it, so I've taken away all my scaffolding. And I am ready to start to decorate this. This is the fun part. When we start to paint. Kids love to paint. Anytime you bust out the paints, you know the kids are going to love it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let that dry for our next step. So one thing I'll do before I have the kids prepare to what they're going to paint, I like to have them plan out what they're going to paint beforehand. So as you can see, I have my basic drawing and I've got my sculpture. I'm going to use crayons or colored pencils to think about some colors that I think would work well. Okay, some suggestions for you as you go into this adventure of having kids paint. One idea that I like to do is I have several tables in my elementary classroom, and I would set up a plate of just orange, or a plate of black, or a plate of yellow, and then the kids could take their sculptures with them to the next table and use that color as needed, rather than giving every single kid every single color. Because you know what happens when you give every single kid every single color on a plate? They mix it all together and it turns into this poopy, like purplish, brownish color, okay? So keeping the colors separate is ideal. Now, we don't need to do that in this setting right here just because you're doing it individually, but I would put a different color at every table and have them walk around. And it's more fun for them. It's more physical for them as well. So with that in mind, make sure you tell them not to paint the grass or the ground until the very last part. So actually, you should probably tell them not to paint it at all. And then on the very last day, what you will do is, okay, everyone, now we're going to paint our ground. You do it all together. Because you want them to be able to handle it with their hands. If they paint this first, their hands are going to be messy. And even if they're painting it individually with the colors here, then they're going to want to make sure they keep it clean until the end as well. You'll notice that you'll get some color on here, and so it'll be nice to just clean it up at the end. So I'm going to play the video in fast motion of me painting my sculpture. Okay, and this is my completed cute little camera house, dream house. I added the black lines at the end just stylistically. It kind of gives it a neat little cartoon-like look to it, three-dimensional cartoon look. And of course I did the green at the very end. I kept mine very simple. I didn't add any dots or decorations, but make sure if they do add any decorations that the first layer has dried first before they do any additional layers. One last thing you can do with this, it's tempera paint, so it's going to have a matte finish to it. And if you want to seal it to make it look really nice and shiny, you could do a spray like clear coat varnish over it, or you could use matte medium. Matte medium is something you can buy, but it's really expensive. And maybe you could use something like Mod Podge as well, just a clear coat to cover it up and seal it all together. But those three things you would have to do alone as an adult. You wouldn't do that around with students. All right, I can't wait to see what your creation is. Remember, you get to choose your dream house. It does not need to be a camera house unless you're a photographer like me. Choose your dream house and create your very own. Remember, you can use cardboard. You could use mat board, any kind of board that you have laying around. Scraps of cardboard. You could use foam core from the dollar store as well. Have fun making.